Hello everyone and welcome to a bunch of games I played in January of 2022. Now December, I missed the video because I realized that once you pass a certain threshold, you just don't record this because no one's going to watch it anyway. So, I am catching the February wave really fast and I'm going to talk about all the games I've played in January because there are a lot of great games. And I think, I haven't counted, but it kind of evens out at about 50 unique games and over 100 plays, so that's cool. As per my November roundup, I will be doing it in reverse alphabetical order from the game I played the least amount of times to the most amount of times because that's the easy way for me to access it on Board Game Geek. Also, it's really weird. Nobody else does it like this, so let's get started. Hey there, future Kevin here. I just finished recording the video and I'm pretty tired, but I came back to say a little disclaimer. Basically, with a lot of these monthly roundups, a lot of people like to talk about the game, describe its mechanisms, and unfortunately, if I want to keep on doing these every month, I cannot describe the mechanisms over and over again. That's so cumbersome, and describing mechanisms on a video can only go so far. I feel like if I'm describing 50 games, there's a lot that people aren't going to take in. So what I'm trying to do, or what I am not trying to do, what I'm easily doing when I talk about these games is giving you some impressions, some feelings. So certain mechanisms might be referenced in a way that will not be friendly for people who don't know the game. But I think in doing so, I'll be able to bring out the vibe of the game more fittingly than giving you an information dump of how the game is played. There are so many other videos for these games, but what I want to do here is give you a feeling of what the game feels like, what it made me feel, impressions, feel, and then if you want, you can look up other videos to see if you like that. So yeah, just a quick disclaimer, so you know what you're expecting from this video. Back to the real thing. First game I played was Welcome to. Wow, this must have been really early in the month. Okay, I remember this play. It was online, and we had 5 people, and we were kind of playing a bunch of stuff like High Society and stuff. And then I was like, hey, welcome to. A few of us had played it, a few of us haven't. It was like a good refresh game. I taught a few people, and it was a lot of fun. Even when 5 people, I mean, this game can honestly play as many people as you want it to, but there is one section of the game that is like whoever has the majority. So I feel like with 5 people, it still was worth it to consider going for that particular track. And it was just a really fun time. I thought, everyone working on the same thing, bingo type games where everyone is doing things simultaneously based on like a shared information. You're like filling in stuff out a la bingo is one of my favorite mechanisms. So Welcome to is still a game that I like very much. The next game I played is Top Trumps. I played the horse and ponies and unicorns version of Top Trumps. I actually made a Twaddle Tuesday video on it. By the way, Twaddle Tuesday is going to be temporarily canceled because I want to get my editing game on and actually get some more important big videos. So Twaddle Tuesday is going to be put on hiatus, but I do intend to put it back because it's like the catchiest name on earth. I need to bring it back at some point. And also I like talking unscripted. Soon you will find out that a lot of my videos are going to be quite scripted. And so this type of roundup and the Twaddle Tuesday vids are a good way for me to either practice going off script, but also to not spend as much time writing a script. So yeah, Top Trumps, a game that fascinates me because I can see that as a kid, I would have really liked it. You just compare stats. Each card has a bunch of stats. You call out a stat to compare. You reveal each other your cards, and whoever wins on that stat wins. Yeah, it's harmless fun, but it's also not really a good game at this point in my life. But still, I would not say no to a Top Trumps in a franchise that I like that I hadn't played before. So that's something. The next game I played was Targi. Now, somewhere down the line, I want to make a more detailed review on Targi, but based on my one play of this, I did not like this game. I thought this was one of the most overrated games that I had ever had the opportunity to play. I thought that it was way too long. I thought that it was really boring, and everything on paper sounded cool. The blocking of the workers, this sounds like the stuff that's up my alley. More cutthroat, Euro-ish stuff. But when it comes to the actual things you can do in the game, like getting a few resources and then exchanging them for other stuff, it was really, really dry. And I like dry games, and I even didn't mind the look of the game, but man, this game's not good. And I intend to play a bit more of it, as well as try a few of the variants that people may not even know about in the game, that the designer has so graciously supported. And I want to go on this deep dive rabbit hole on Targi and really delve into why I don't like this game. So stay tuned for that. It's going to come sometime in the next few months within the year. Yeah, Targi, really weird experience. The next game I played was Rhino Hero Super Battle, and this is another one that I want to review. I might pair it up with another game and do a double review, because the thing about Rhino Hero Super Battle is that, you know, it promises this whole, ooh, we're gonna play until somebody breaks the tower. But if everyone's really careful, you get to a point where you care more about the collaborative house, the apartment complex that you build with the cards, because it's so fun watching this come together, and it almost becomes a co-op game, even though it's still a competitive game. And I feel like the game is almost at odds with itself in terms of what it wants to be. Yeah, it's a stacking game where you fold cards and you try to build up, and then you can't fail basically on your turn. You have to be as good as you can, a la Jenga, but you're not tearing something apart, you're building something up. Very cool game. It's a game that I've had a lot of success with, playing with non-gamers, and the presentation is pretty awesome, but I wonder how much longer I would keep this one because of, in my opinion, what is an identity crisis with this game. The next game I played was Push. Push remains one of the more solid push your luck games that anyone can play, although I do wonder if I've played enough games of it to either maybe gift it to someone else, or put it away in my shelf for a bit and then wait till I'm ready to play it again. Wait till it feels fresh, because you're doing the same thing every game. You're playing reverse Uno with yourself. You make piles of numbers that can't be the same color or the same number. If you go too far, you bust, and then you give the cards to your neighbors. It's very interactive. There's a lot of fun moments to be had, but I feel like it may have outpushed its welcome for now. The next game I played was The Mind. I don't remember when I played The Mind. When did I play The Mind? Oh, okay. Yeah, it was during a really long game day I had with a family that I like to play games with. But yeah, we played The Mind. It's weird that we only played one play of it. That must mean that we got pretty far into it, probably like 4 or 5 levels in with 3 players. I mean, there was a younger member, so you know, our mind sync was not all together, but it was fun to remind myself how good this game is. This is a game that I feel like I can play as, even though, like, unlike Push, the mind is so determined by who plays it that I feel like I won't ever get tired of its skeletally simple gameplay. Stare at each other, play a card, that type of stuff. Yeah, Mine's amazing. It's one of my top 10 games of all time, and I hope to get it played more in the coming months. The next game I played is an older title. It is from 2007. It is called Marrakech. It is a game with very pretty carpets and a really funny little dude named Assam. And recently I saw that the Board Game Geek photo of this game has changed, the cover of it. So I'm wondering if it's getting a reprint. In any case, I do believe this game is quite good. I really like the push your luck factor, and like how you don't have much control over it, but you're still kind of invested as you move Assam around the board, and then you're trying to, it's like area control, but you're also trying to get Assam onto your color so that you get paid. It's really fun, although I do think it might be a little too simplistic. It might be a little too on the simplistic side, but I've only played it once. I intend to play it a few more times before I decide what to do with it, and there are a few variants that I want to try. One of them sounds particularly fun, and you can like screw over your neighbor on their next turn, so I really want to try that. That's Marrakech. The next game I played was A Little Wordy. This is a 2-player only word game made by The Oatmeal. And honestly, I think since Exploding Kittens, which I actually think is a very noteworthy design. It's an interesting design to contemplate, just in how influential it is as far as copycats, because there are so many Exploding Kittens copycats. Before the Exploding Kittens, there weren't that many games that were exactly like Exploding Kittens, but both from the art style and from the gameplay, Exploding Kittens was quite influential for the countless Kickstarter projects afterwards. But I do think A Little Wordy is a better design than Exploding Kittens. And for most people, that's going to be kind of obvious. But I really like the different powers you can use to guess the opponent's words, and also the way you can give the opponent's points depending on which questions you use is kind of a really solid and kind of a different mechanism. I really like it, and the way the game ends and how the words you pick can influence how complicated or how useful a question is. Like if you make a different word, a question that would be usually really expensive, I don't know. Well, a question that would usually be really cheap suddenly becomes not that useful. Like that sort of balance, it's really neat. It feels very well thought out. It feels like it's been play tested a lot. And yeah, super cool. I know the Exploding Kittens 2-player game is coming out, and I actually am strangely curious because I think there is a chance of a good 2-player version of Exploding Kittens out in there. And because he's become such a better designer, I'm very interested in that. And I might be the first serious board game channel to cover that because I already have it on order. It's going to arrive in a few days. So very excited about that. That's A Little Wordy. Next game I played was Land vs. Sea. This is a game that really reminds me of Carcassonne, but I can tell you right now, Carcassonne is one of my unholy trinity of family games that I don't like. That being Catan, Ticket to Ride, and Carcassonne. I feel like there's a few more, but I like to call that my unholy trinity. Now, Land vs. Sea, first of all, Carcassonne has square tiles, Land vs. Sea has hexagons, and then both games have you starting with nothing, or maybe just one piece, and then you're making the board. You're expanding the entire territory by placing these tiles. I was very skeptical about Land vs. Sea, but I will tell you, this is a really, really great game. And I like it so much more than Carcassonne. And all of you Carcassonne naysayers who saw, there was like this phase like late October last year where everyone was talking about Land vs. Sea for like a short time. For all of you who saw that and was like, I don't like Carcassonne, I probably won't like it, please try this game. It is so good, it is so pretty, and the way you got to play the full complicated mode because the way you get points in this game, I'm not even a fan of like adjacency type, like Suburbia or this set collection adjacency type tiling games. But this one just really, really worked for me. And I think it's just there's some long-term strategy, there's some short-term tactics. None of the scoring is at odds with one another. And so you really feel like you have multiple paths to pursue. And there's a really cool 3-player mode where like the third person's sort of like a neutral player that's different, does something different from the land player and the sea player. And all of that is really awesome. I really like Land vs. Sea, and I highly recommend it. The next game I played was Kariba. I always happen to play a game of Kariba. There's always an opportunity to play Kariba every month. And this time there was a little girl at a sort of gaming afternoon that I had, and I taught her Kariba. It was really fast, and I crushed her because I do really like playing the game, and it's a game that I don't know why. Like, there are some games where if I'm teaching a newcomer, I would go easy on. Kariba, I just really enjoy kind of crushing them because there are no hard feelings in this game. Nobody's gonna weep over their loss at Kariba, but it's a good way for me to tell them that, hey, this little tiny box Knizia game that is like the simplest thing ever, you think this game is all luck? Well, through playing with me, I think they immediately know, wait, this guy is doing some moves that are clearly like well thought out because they keep on capturing cards. What is that all about? That's what I like to show them, because I think Kariba is a classic Knizia design because it showcases how there's, like most of his games, there's always more than meets the eye. That's Kariba. The next game I played is Istanbul, one of my favorite games that I do not own yet, but I keep on finding people who own this game and I keep on playing it. So yeah, really fun. I got to teach this version of the game, and I will say I think the game is better with the coffee, the mocha, and baksheesh expansion. I've not played Letters and Seals, but the base game, getting to 5 gems, 5 rubies, it's just so simple and a little less crunchy, but just a little more relaxing. You get to go to the tea house, do those classic resource conversion sort of stuff, and yeah, you know the spatial element, the walking around is really fun, really immersive, and I played this with somebody who often thinks that all Euro games are the same. And when I played it with her, I told her, hey, I think you're gonna find this one to be a little different. And yeah, she ended up finding this one to be rather noteworthy. So yeah, Istanbul. Istanbul is that family plus level game that I just really, really love and really, really recommend. It's, I would say, a perfect design. The next game I played was In Too Deep. Now, the version of In Too Deep I played was on Tabletop Simulator, and only after the first game did I realize how different that version of the game was from the final copy. This was a prototype copy of the game, and a lot of the powers and the cards were a little bit still rudimentary. They're a little prototypey, like the prototype would imply. But I did look at the final game, and it seems like they tweaked a bunch of stuff. And In Too Deep is a fascinating design. It is a game that essentially has this weird Santorini-esque but pick up and deliver abstract game going on in the middle. But everything you do with that middle section of the board, the pick up and deliver, mind you, I don't like pick up and deliver, but I do really like this game. Everything you do in the pick up and deliver has bigger implications about these tasks you're trying to complete as you pick up and deliver, maneuver your way to certain spots, and then eventually get to the point where you're influencing this weird rebellion, but it's really abstracted. This is not a super thematic game, but the amount of bluffing and double bluff that I found in this game was really, really interesting. It's a very hard game to explain. I actually thought I did a very decent teach of it, so pat on the back. I was teaching 2 people who've never played the game before, and yeah, it's a weird game to get your head around, but like the game looks so gorgeous in its final form that I already have it on order, and I intend to try to get it played at some point soon. Experience that final game IRL, and yeah, In Too Deep is very much one of the games that's solidly released in January 2022. Some games, like, you're not sure if it's a 2021 game or a 2022 game. In Too Deep very much came out within this first month of 2022, and it is definitely one of the best. The next game I played was Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft, and this goes back to very early in the month. Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft is a really cool 2-player only worker placement game. And it's worker placement in the aspect that you put a worker there and it gives you an ability. But it doesn't have as much of the the controlling aspect of it. Where if you put a worker and then your other opponent, your only one other opponent puts another worker there, like they can inhabit the same spot, which is kind of weird. So it's like a lighter, less cutthroat worker placement game, and it's essentially the worker placement is a way to collect cards. And so the game feels like a card game, but with a worker placement board that adds a little extra layer of thinkiness. Add to it a weird scoring that like puts a neat twist on your generic set collection and rummy sort of game. And you have what Z Garcia would call a winner. And the reason I mention Z Garcia is because, first of all, he really likes this game. And I was going to say that if you like those card games that Z Garcia tends to like, I don't know if he likes Parade, but for some reason Parade is one that comes to mind. Or like those weird Amigo German card games that aren't like even published here, those really quirky little card games. Holmes, Sherlock, and Mycroft might be a game that you would really, really dig. And it's not thematic at all. I mean, the art is really nice. And I like to try to work in a bit of theme every time I play it, like talk about it a bit. But it is a card game, Euro game that has a neat theme and one that I enjoyed playing time and time again. Definitely better than Targi. I actually played this as sort of a double feature with Targi. I was teaching a friend both of these games, and I mean, I just like this one so much more than Targi. That's just the truth of it. The next game I played was Hive. This was my first time playing Hive, and this was definitely earlier in January. January felt so long, and so that's why I'm just like thinking, like, when did I play this? Yeah, Hive is really great. I was very skeptical because there was no board in Hive, and it's hexes, and there's ways to move around the hexes, like an abstract game, like the spider like spins around and stuff. Oh no, the ant spins around, the spider moves 3 steps. I thought all of that was not going to work because the game didn't have a board. Now that I've played it, I think the game is better off not having a board, because the bugs, they move around so much that, like, how big of a board do you need to really make sure that this game is fully playable on the board? And I found myself never getting confused about what I can't or cannot do. Like if there's like a hole that's being dug in the middle, and there's like no way to fit the bug in as it's moving, then it simply does not go in. That's so intuitive. I really like it. And it was also a game that, well, I mean, I was playing against a evenly matched player, but it's a game that I felt like it was very easy for me to feel clever about. I remember when I first played Santorini, that my immediate impression was, wow, this is an amazing game, but the game is a few steps ahead of my head. That I needed to play it more in order to get better at it. Hive felt like a game that I immediately felt clever and even had a bit control over what I was doing. And for a game with so many different abilities and different pieces, I'm very impressed by it. I can see why it has stood the test of time over all the other abstracts that have come out. And I really, really dug Hive. I really want to play it more. The next game I played was Gold Fever, a very infamous game because Tom Vasily gave it a super low score, and this happens to be one of my favorite entry-level push your luck games. I had mentioned Push earlier, but Gold Fever, I see having more frequent play. Like, I've played Push probably a little more than Gold Fever, but they're about the same number of plays. But the interaction that you have in Gold Fever, as well as a little bit more of the screw you, the take that element, is so fun that I enjoy teaching this. I enjoy showing this to new players. With Push, again, the game is great. I think it's really well designed. But at some point, like, I've seen all there is to see with the game. Gold Fever is really great. I really like it. You pull stones out of a bag. You can't go too far. You're trying to get the 5 gold stones out of it. But then people are putting their gravel into your bag. You're putting yours into theirs. There's a way to trigger a speed round where everyone's just frantically grabbing stuff at the same time, trying to be the first one to get a gold. Very frantic, very fun. Yeah, Gold Fever. The next game I played was Glow. I played this online actually, and I will tell you, Glow is not a game to play online. And Glow is a very strange game. It is not a game that I would recommend to everyone. In fact, I would say most definitely try before you buy. Even though the game is designed by Cedric Chaboussi, who did Lewis and Clark, I do think that Glow is a stranger design. Um, Very cool solo mode though. But I played the solo mode in February, like yesterday. So that's neither here nor there. But it's a game where you're what I the way I like to say it is, ugh. I had this whole thing. It's like Yahtzee meets Furnace meets Sorry meets a little bit of Red Cathedral. Yeah, the score track reminded me of Red Cathedral. The maneuvering on the board reminds me of a roll and move game like Sorry or Candyland. Candyland would be probably my more iconic pick. Not that Sorry's not iconic, but and what were the others? Wow, I'm having a big brain fart trying to piece all these games. Furnace, because you're building a tableau, and even though you're not getting an engine, you are trying to roll your dice and activate those abilities, or not activate those abilities, which is really weird. And then the last one was Yahtzee, because you only have so much control over your dice. And so the game is also a little hard to understand. And it's short enough that I would like to replay it. And that's why I mentioned the solo mode, because if I know the rules, it's really easy. But if I'm teaching new people this game, I worry about the time for them to understand the game versus thinking that, oh, this might be a really strategic game, only to find out at the end, oh, there is a lot of luck. Because the game gives you the illusion of, oh, I can control my rerolls. But at the end of the day, dice are dice, and you're going to struggle with that. But did I mention the art of this game? It's incredible. So yeah, that's Glow. Try before you buy. The next game I played was The Fox in the Forest. We played a shortened game of it, so first to 14 points. One of my favorite games ever. The reason The Fox in the Forest is so great for me is that it doesn't try to be more than it has to. The cards have a few extra abilities. It is for 2 players only. It doesn't do the thing where like, oh, it's playable for every player count. But you know, every trick-taking game has a designated player count that you can sort of see if you look a little carefully. Fox in the Forest is only 2 players. Fox in the Forest doesn't have too many variant modes. It just is a deck of cards and a really neat scoring system, and the replayability is basically infinite. So I mean, I just think it's one of the greatest designs, and it exhibits everything that I like about trick taking, but in a 2-player package. I have not tried Claim, but I feel like I would like that one a lot as well. But for now, Fox in the Forest is just the best 2-player trick taking game. Yay. The next game I played was Everdell. And here I go again thinking about when did I play Everdell this month? Must have been a while back. Was it IRL? Was it online? I don't remember. But Everdell is really good. It is. I feel like after I play a few expansions of it, it can easily become my favorite game of all time. It is that perfect weight. And I can see it getting a little harder, which I like. I like a little bit of crunch. And I think the base game is also, oh, I remember, it was IRL. And it was really weird, this game. Yeah, I'm glad I remembered this. This game of Everdell was really weird because I was teaching 2 first-time players. And I finished the game basically 3/4 of the time that they did. So the last quarter was just them playing. Everdell has a weird thing where one player, once they're done, they can just end the game and just basically be out while the other players still have turns left. For like, you know, a 2-hour, 2+ hour long teaching game of Everdell, yeah, I was done by the 1.5 hour mark. And so the last half hour is just them like figuring out what else they want to do, what else they can fit within their city. But I ended up winning because, and that's just a testament of how balanced this game is. Where like, yes, you can be efficient and feel like, wow, how did I leave the last season so early? but yet still have a good enough scoring system, a good enough city that scores you points, a good enough strategy overall that still gives you the win. So very cool. Love Everdell. Still clearly a lot more plays to be had of this, because that was the first time I've experienced that type of scenario, and I look forward to experiencing that again. The next game I played was a first time for me. It is Ethnos. I went to a new friend's house and we had 5 players, so we played Ethnos. It was really, really fun. I am not generally a fan of rummy type games. This one has an area control board that I just go crazy over, because I just really like area control. And that simple type of El Grande style area control is just really, it just makes me really excited. And then you combine that with like a rummy style game that's like really, really breezy and casual. And I'm sure everyone loves that part of it. Everyone loves the synthesis of it. And I will say, this is probably the most solid Ticket to Ride killer that I would recommend anybody. I mean, I know there's some debate about the art being terrible, but I am gonna be contrarian here and say that the only thing bad about the art is that the cards are too dark. I like the board, I like the plastic pieces, and I even like the box cover. I know, call me really, really weird, but I saw that it was generic fantasy and I didn't mind it. In fact, when I first looked at Ethnos, like years ago, I don't know, this was, you know, on the family weight games that is recommended, the box and the board made me want to play it. And, you know, and then I watched the Dice Tower video and everyone had Ethnos on their list of really, really ugly games. And I realized, that was the moment I truly realized, wow, art is really subjective. Yeah. And yeah, even as I played it, I'm like, okay, the only thing I would change is that some of these creatures are definitely a little on the like basic uglier side and a little dark. But it's fine. It's fine. I still like it, and everything else again is even attractive to me. So, yeah. So if anybody likes Ticket to Ride, I would say Ethnos is an upgrade. Again, Ticket to Ride is in my unholy trinity. So, yeah, it's good. It's not my favorite because of the rummy stuff, but I would play it again if somebody else wants to, and we have like 4 or 5 people. Ethnos. The next game I played was Dive. I got to try out Dive this month, and it's a really weird game, but it's one that I really dig. This is a game that's kind of like Glow, where, you know, there's a main gimmick, and you might really like the gimmick. You might really like the idea of there being a bunch of translucent boards and you have to identify sea creatures by looking through it, you know? But you might not like the game surrounding it, which is this bizarre bidding thing. This bizarre way of bidding for what you think you see and how certain you can be. And there's a way that you can get disqualified for the entire round, which can be really frustrating for people who, you know, just literally can't see or are trying really hard to see what is in there. But I happen to really like this fusion. This is a fusion that I really, really enjoy. I like auctions. I wouldn't call this an auction, but I would call this, you know, it is definitely a form of bidding. And I really like the gimmick of the game. I really like the dexterity, the looking through it. One person can have a flashlight because it makes the game even easier to see. Yeah, Dive is one that I would say try before you buy, but I really, really like it. The next game I played was Diamant, or as Board Game Geek says, Diamant, or Incan Gold. And man, I thought Incan Gold was going to be like the push your luck game, you know, for a big group. But after playing it a few times, I don't know if I like it that much. It's a little too swingy for me. And, you know, it's a party game, you know, everyone's having fun. But, I leave the game very unsatisfied because I tend to push my luck too far. And I wish that at some point I can get rewarded for it. Not that I won't get super lucky, but I find that with the way the hazard cards are shuffled and the quantity of them, I don't think Incan Gold is that balance of push your luck that I like. Still more plays though. I still want to keep it for a bit. And yeah, if there's 6 to 8 people and I want to push your luck game, I mean, this is the one, right? So, yeah, really has what is it? Trepidation? No, hesitation. Reserved. Really, I have some reservations for Incan Gold. Also, the bookshelf version is terrible. Please don't buy it. The rules don't teach one of the main things in the game, which is you have to decide if you want to leave every single turn. So I don't know what's wrong with the rule book there, why they even changed it. And then there's like this meeple thing. Like there are two ways to play. You can play with cards, or you can play by dropping a meeple on the table. Wholly unnecessary. Just get like the standard version of Ink and Gold, not the bookshelf deluxe version, because that version was not really good. Next game I played was Decrypto. After playing Decrypto somewhere in the middle of the month, I was like, I gotta play this again because this wasn't my first play of it, but this was my first play in a long time. Decrypto is definitely one of the best games ever made. It's hard to teach a little bit, but I find that um, you can, after a few turns, everyone starts to get it and they get focused. They really get focused in the game of Decrypto. It's a weird word game. I'm not going to explain it right here. And yeah, highly recommend just playing it. It's not even that expensive. Buy it, get 4 to 6 people, and just play it. Please, Decrypto, so good. Looking forward to playing this more. Aqualin is the next game. One game of Aqualin, huh? Can't remember. But this is an abstract game that I really like, even though I'm really bad at, even though I won. Wow, see, I just at some point I just remember the game that I played because I tend to have a pretty good memory. So when I forget things, I really hone in on the fact that I forgot something. But yeah, I do remember this game of Aqualin. I won pretty abundantly. Like it was a really far ahead victory, and it just felt like that game made sense to me. It's a game where you have a lot of freedom. You move a piece anywhere alongside one direction, and then you put another piece on the table. And your opponent does that same thing, and you're trying to get groups of things together. And yeah, it's one that's hard for me to understand, but on a good day, I can understand it, and I really like it. I like it either way, but if I'm losing, I might not be as hot about playing it. So that's Aqualin. And now we move on to the games I've played twice. First game I played twice was the Zorro dice game, a game that I have no intention of playing multiplayer because I don't think it's going to work really well for me. But as a solo game, as just a push your luck game, sort of like Glow, where you don't have that much control, but you're just like, some night I'm just going to look over my shelf, be like, Zorro dice game, let's do it. I want to see how lucky I am. I want to test my luck. And the game is like 10 minutes. You play it again. That's why I played it twice. They were both the same session. The dice are so tiny, and I really like that. You roll a bunch of dice. It's really satisfying. You defeat these people. You go around trying to complete these tasks. You're sort of building an engine. You're getting a little stronger and stronger, getting these abilities, and it's really, really fun. So yeah, probably too light for most people, but for what it's trying to do as a solo experience, it has a spot in my collection. The next game I played was Radlands, and Radlands is so good. I have already played it way more since January. Like it's only what? It's only the third day of February. Well, I guess it's the second day because it's past midnight. I'm a night owl. It's only the second day of February, and I think I've already played 3 more games of it. I really, really love Radlands. It's super cheap, so please get it before supply runs out. And well, once supplies get low, the prices are gonna be up anyway. But the packaging is super small, and the standard version is just delightful. It's delightful. It has 2 things that make it kind of Euro-y, and not that I have a lot of experience in dueling card games, but the 2 things that stand out to me as being Euro-y are the multi-use cards. You have a free action you can do, but if you use the free action, you can't summon it. But summoning it costs something. It costs water, your main resource. So which one are you going to choose? The other thing is the resource management of water feels kind of Euro-y, very crunchy. Honestly, kind of feels like doing Imperium and how scarce the water is over there. But it's so good. It's amazing. Please try it, even if you're not into dueling card games. I didn't think I'd be so into this, but it's so simple, it's streamlined. It doesn't have like 6 stats like the magic, the attack, the defense, all that stuff, which that's the stuff that tends to overwhelm me and make me not want to play these types of games. Radlands is so good. It's just it's of the games released this year so far. Not that a lot has been released. This is number 1 right now. It's so good. Next game I played was Patchwork. I played 2 games of Patchwork, and I really explored the fact that the new Halloween version of the game has rebalanced tiles. And that's really, really interesting for me, because I tried it, and I watched Tom Vassel's review on it, and he said there wasn't big of a difference. In my opinion, based on my few games of Patchwork, there's a pretty noticeable difference with these new versions of the tiles. It's very tight. It's quite a lot tighter, and it definitely feels like when I play Patchwork, I think even back then I got the idea of, okay, some turns are going to feel easy because there's going to be a tile that feels like a good bargain. With these rebalanced tiles, and there were 14 of them that were rebalanced, I definitely feel that less. There are no more bargain tiles. If a tile costs 0 time or 0 buttons, I can see why. There's a really clear reason. I'm like, oh, that makes sense. It's like awkward to put on my board, or it doesn't give you any buttons for the income. Yeah, so I think the rebalanced version of Patchwork is the version to get. I tried to look at if the new Valentine's Day edition of Patchwork has the rebalanced tiles, and I sure hope it does, because I hope it's not just a one-off thing, because it is better with it. And I had Patchwork at a 10 out of 10 when I first played it, but as time went by, I did feel the uneven turns, and I think I deep down knew that something was a little unbalanced about it. But now playing this, it may very well be a 10 out of 10 again. Next game I played was also an abstract. It is Onitama, very different type of abstract, where mini chess, 5x5, you use up a move on a card, you pass it to your opponent. So the moves kind of cycle around. Really great. The Ninja expansion, the Light and Shadow expansion, is not super high on my wish list, just because I've been kind of poor. My budget's been kind of low lately, and for some reason, I'm just very content with my normal Onitama. I know I'm gonna love it when I get it, but right now, just not gonna put it on my radar. Next game I played was No Thanks, and No Thanks is always really fun. These were 2 different situations. It wasn't the same session. Sometimes I play No Thanks multiple times in a row. This time it was 2 different occasions, and it just keeps on being really good. It is very much scripted to a certain extent, and the more I play it, the more I notice it's scripting, but then the more I play it, the more I realize, oh, you can do things to not only influence the scripting of the game, how, turns are kind of binded, but you can also influence the meta of the game. For example, there was one game of No Thanks where a high card showed up right away. And so we did the thing where we went round and round around the table, and the card got more and more and more chips. And then I took it, and then later on, a few more high numbers came out, and I refused to take them even though they might help me, and I just went around the table. Because it happened near the beginning of the game, everyone knew that this game you can play cutthroat. And you don't need to feel bad. So that game became, everyone started fishing for chips. Everyone started going round and round the table. And the way that influenced the meta, just because of how the cards came out, was really interesting. And it makes No Thanks, again, a very cool reverse auction social type of game. Party game, 4 to 5 people. Recommend. Next game I played was Moon Adventure. This is the new Oink game that is a spiritual sequel to Deep Sea Adventure. And I will make a video comparing the two, but I will spoil this right now. Moon Adventure is the game Deep Sea Adventure should have been. It is quite a significant degree more complicated because it feels more like a Forbidden Desert type of co-op game. But when you play Deep Sea Adventure, I think Deep Sea Adventure is a perfect design. But the problem with that game comes with the people you play it with. There's always somebody, it could be you, who's trying to ruin everyone else's game because you have a shared oxygen meter. And so your ability to breathe in the game is dependent upon what the other players do as well as yourself. And that's just a recipe for disaster. Again, I think the game is, there's no flaw about the game other than the zero value chips. That's a little much. But there's no flaw in the game essentially. But I don't really want to play it because of the people that I play it with, which is everyone. Someone's gonna return early and start draining all the oxygen, or just pick up a chip early rather. Someone's gonna pick up a chip early and ruin the entire strategy of everyone else. But Moon Adventure is really, really great. We're working together with not really a shared oxygen pool, but you definitely feel the oxygen is very restrictive. And it has that action point thing that is pioneered in Tikal, where you can get like 9 action points a turn, and there are some actions that cost 2 action points, some cost 3, and I really, really like that. It's a little swingy on many aspects, and I tend to co-op games that involve a lot of luck, which is most co-op games, a lot of dice rolling and stuff, don't work for me. But for some reason, all of the luck in this game just feels so right, and it makes me want to try again and again to play it. It's also really short. It's also really small and easy to set up. So that's why I like Moon Adventure. Full video coming soon, hopefully. Next game I played was Illusion. I did play 2 games of Illusion in a row, and one game was like 3 players, one game was like 4 players. Really, really fun. I like this game with 3 or 4 players because you get this feeling of, you're trying to line up these cards and try to see how much of a color is in these pictures and line them up in order. So, like any good bluffing game that has like a lot of people, you can get to the point where you get to a certain part of the table and you just feel good. You're like, oh, it's not going to come back to me for a bit. I probably don't have to worry anymore. Like Liar's Dice, that kind of has that feeling where like when it's my turn, I feel really tense. But if I get my turn on a safer time during the round, I can just push the responsibility to the rest of the table, and I'm just gonna cruise along, Illusion has that feeling. And the first time I played with 2 people, I didn't see that. And so I thought the game was good, but with that 3 or 4 player count, especially at 4, it just adds a little bit more of that Liar's Dice nature to it. And it becomes a really, really strong game. The next game I played was The Game. The game I played was The Game. This was online. I played 2 games of the game online. We won once, 4 players. I will say 4 players the game seems to be the easiest way to win, but it is very satisfying because it doesn't feel that way. It feels like, wow, there are 4 people. When I want to place a card somewhere, there are 3 people telling me not to put it somewhere. But because of how many cards get seen, it seems to be the perfect count to actually possibly win the game. So it's very satisfying. But 3 players might be like the better difficulty. If you can win a 3-player game, you feel really, really rewarded. But the game is really fun. The next game I played was Flamme Rouge. This is a first time play, or rather the first 2 times played for me. First time I played it, there were a few kids on the table, and they didn't, Flamme Rouge, I have come to the point where I really believe that every good race game needs to be a little grueling towards the middle. Like Jamaica, there's a point in the middle where you kind of feel like, wow, the game probably should end soon, but it doesn't. A game I don't like as much as Downforce, and I'm gonna actually rank I have a video sometime in the future where I'm going to rank a bunch of popular race games and talk further about this. But Flamme Rouge has a part in the game where you do feel like it's a bit grueling. Like, wow, I don't know what's happening. I'm getting used to my actions are becoming autopilot, like turn after turn after turn, resolve, resolve, resolve. But then you get to the end, and then the suspense and the tension and the excitement just builds, and I really, really love it. So the first game I played with the kids kind of lost patience halfway. So I felt like I liked it, but I didn't get the full experience of it. And then later I found an online mod of it and I played it, and oh my goodness, it was electrifying. Even on the online interface, it was just so good. It combines that deck building, deck wrecking sort of mechanism with some really clever maneuvering on the board. And Flamme Rouge is, because Shut Up and Sit Down are the only people who sort of advocate Flamme Rouge that crazily, I definitely had my reservations and doubts about it, but when I played it, it's so good. They were right. They were right this time. The next game I played was another, what I would consider a January release, because it falls in that weird zone. Once you reach December 15th of the previous year, just to make things easier, I consider it to be part of January, because different retailers, different online retailers versus like friendly local game stores, they're gonna have the game in stock at different times. And so, yeah, Corrosion is the game I'm talking about. I consider this a January release, and this is another really, really strong game. It's very long, but I find it just very exciting. Every single turn is so exciting. Even the beginning, which a lot of people have complained that the beginning is a little slow, I think every turn is exciting. Just the way the game is put together. I'm not going to go into it here because it's also a rather convoluted game to explain at first. But I really like how the wheel works, how you have to turn things rust, cards get placed, you get it back later. So cool. Century Spice Road on absolute steroids. And yeah, engine building, but sort of an existential engine builder, because again, your engine pieces literally fall apart as you play. Corrosion, super great. Also, really good solo mode. One of my plays was solo, and that's how I learned the game, and it's really, really good. The next game I played was Caesar's Empire, another January release. As you noticed, I've been playing a lot of recent releases, and the reason is because I really want to make this channel about the recent retail releases. And so a lot of videos are going to be coming out about these games. Caesar's Empire is a really, really great kids game. I think it achieves a really short playtime while being another Ticket to Ride killer that I would highly recommend. Except while Ethnos, the other Ticket to Ride killer I mentioned earlier, has that card play, that rummy aspect, Caesar's Empire eliminates cards entirely. So it's more similar to Transamerica, but because everyone knows Ticket to Ride and not as much Transamerica these days, I'm just going to call it a Ticket to Ride killer. You're placing roads on the map, and then other people can use your roads, but when you trace the road back to Rome, which is the center of the board, every single road that's used to access a new spot on the board gives those players points. So you can be giving your opponents points, but also working on a set collection goal that may give you points, more points in return. And it sounds more complicated than it really is. It's super elegant, and I think this is a game that should be in the pantheon of kids games. Yeah, Caesar's Empire. The next game I played was, I feel a sneeze coming. It's probably not going to happen though. Next game I played was Blazon. Blazon, there's a prototype of it on TTS, and I really, really dig it. I do think the rulebook is a little bit prototypey. Also, there was a weird issue with the hand size on TTS, where you can see everyone's hands at a certain point. So that's really weird. But Blazon's really nice. It's a lot like Cascadia. It very much falls into that recent trend of games that are similar to Cascadia. It actually combines Cascadia and Calico because it's a bit more restrictive, but it also has just a lot of quirks that really resemble Cascadia. But the way you play Blazon is quite unique. You're trying to complete your shield, or maybe just try to get the most points before someone else completes their shield. And then there's a lot of weird balancing mechanisms. It's a game where every single move is something reminiscent of a simpler move, but it's just made more gamery. The way you draw cards is weirdly gamery. The way you play cards is weirdly gamery. But yet, through all that gaminess, the moment it all clicked for me, I thought Blazon was a really fun game to play. And because there are so many ways to score at the end, I believe Blazon is a game that should be played at its maximum allowance of 4 players. I think with 4 players, if everyone knows the rules, if everyone plays it relatively fast, that is the way to play Blazon. Next game I played was Terraforming Mars. Oh, that's a game I played 3 times. Did I really play 3 games of Terraforming Mars? I guess I did. So Terraforming Mars is a game that for the longest time, or rather, no, I should say for the longest time, I loved the game. I thought it was the best thing since sliced bread. And then after playing Everdell, which is not a game that's often compared to Terraforming Mars, Everdell can be a bit more punishing than Terraforming Mars. Because in Terraforming Mars, no matter what you do, I wouldn't say the game punishes you. In fact, your opponents punish you more in Terraforming Mars than the game punishes yourself. Because you just look at a card and say, oh, I can't play that. I can do something else with it. And so I compare that with the more restrictive play of Everdell. And I thought that Everdell has kicked out Terraforming Mars. I should have known that there's a reason why people don't compare the 2 games. Because even for engine builders, they're quite different. And so I basically re-fell in love with Terraforming Mars. And I'm kicking myself every day for having sold my copy, along with the Prelude expansion, along with some promos, along with the dual layered boards. And yeah, I need to get all of that back at some point. But I'm comfortable playing this game online for now, and there are a few people I know who own the game, so that works splendidly. Yeah, I played a solo game. I played a 2-player game where I actually used the solar phase rule that was introduced in the Venus expansion to make the game a little quicker, because it was a teaching game. And then I played a 3-player game that did not have Prelude. That was a little slow, but Terraforming Mars is phenomenal. Fell in love with it. I mean, you know what it is. So yeah, very good. I am planning to play Ark Nova this month though, so we'll see if that really kicks away Terraforming Mars. And I have not tried the card game, Ares Expedition, but I think I can find a reason to own both. I don't think the card game is going to kick out the Terraforming Mars. So when I teach Terraforming Mars, I always teach the stuff on the map first because I actually care about it. And I know people are going to forget about it and play their cards. But for me, the maps, the awards, the milestones, and a lot of the other stuff, the visual of building Mars is more important for me than the story it tells. And you're playing corporations and there's a lot of evil going on, but you're also trying to better humanity is accentuated through the repetitious nature of the repetitive nature of the main game. The Ares Expedition, you get the Race for the Galaxy selection mechanism. That feels a little weird. It doesn't feel like you're really telling the story. It makes sense for you to produce every generation, for you to do the same things and just see Mars come to life. And that storytelling aspect of Terraforming Mars, that makes me want to relive it again and again. I don't think it's going to be recreated in the card game. So, I don't know. I do want to try the card game though. But Terraforming Mars, simple. I mean, the basic version, still where it's at. The next game I played was, okay, time to get real nerdy. Vintage game. I've been looking at a few vintage games, and I've been getting into the deep vintage game section of Board Game Geek. And I discovered a game called Camelot, which is basically the best version of checkers that's ever happened. And this is a game that I really, really enjoy my lack of knowledge of any strategy in the game. Because for me, this game can just result in my enemy going I didn't see that. And then I would just go boom, 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 boom. Capture 6 of their pieces just without them even seeing it. And then I would be we'd be playing. And then the same thing would happen to me. I would not see a move that my opponent did where they could do capture 6 pieces at once. And that adds a lot of chaos to the game. I will say the game is really, really deep. I can see the game becoming, get to the point of chess where there are certain moves that are just better. But I am having such a blast playing Camelot without thinking too much, just trying things out, trying to get to that ending. That's Camelot. The next game I played is another vintage game that happens to line up alphabetically. This is Acquire. I really like Acquire. Acquire is incredible. Oh my goodness. Yeah, had no idea I would like it so much. But for me, this is a game that where the different parts of it come together seamlessly. Just like when I talked about not Glow, but the other one, the Dive. Like when I talked about Dive, you're combining Scrabble essentially with this tight economic game with this area majority game. And all three of those, when they combine, is the perfect amount of tactics and strategy and luck and like bluffing, even. Like, I have this important tile, but no one knows I have it. All these things make Acquire the perfect weight. It makes it the perfect amount, again, of strategy and tactics. And it's just so good. Acquire is the most mind-blowing thing that I've played in a long, long time. Just because of how old it is and the history and how Sid Sackson was like making a few little card games and then somehow Acquire just happened. He just designed it out of nowhere. Unbelievable. Now we come to the games I played 4 times, and I can't believe there are so many. We're going to start with Savannah Park. I continue to love Savannah Park. It is basically the Tiny Towns killer for me. It is also a Calico killer for me because playing Savannah Park feels like Calico, and the main mechanism is literally Tiny Towns, but more streamlined. I don't like Tiny Towns. I think it's looking at all the buildings and those decisions is very overwhelming for me. I find it to feel like work. I don't find it very enjoyable as people call the resource that I don't want, and the board is like this small. But Savannah Park is really, really fun because it feels like, what if Reiner Knizia designed tiny towns? You're calling out tiles, you're maneuvering them to certain spots, and I know it's designed by Kramer and Kiesling, but they really hit that Knizia spot this time. And so I keep on thinking, wow, this is like streamlined Kramer and Kiesling, Knizia-esque design. And Savannah Park is one that I really, really love, and you should always play with the Lions variant, even on your first game, because it makes the game so much better, and it also justifies why there even is a scoreboard to begin with, because that's the only way you score points during the game, instead of just all at the end. So yeah, that's Savannah Park. The next game I played is Santorini. Very glad to have played Santorini 4 times. Play with some god powers. 2 of my games had Artemis, and Artemis is OP. My opponent always picks Artemis, and I always lose. But that's neither here nor there. Santorini is so enjoyable, and I like that it adds these, asymmetric god powers, but yet it still feels like an abstract game. That's what I really like about it. It adds more rules, but it doesn't make it distinctly less abstract. The way you maneuver the game and the way you work around your opponent's ability and play with the core game. I'm sure there's like a few gods that make this game distinctly less abstract, like Chaos. But I've mostly played with the basic gods so far, and Santorini is just one of my favorite games of all time. The next game I played was Qwixx. Always a few games of Qwixx in the bag. At this point, Qwixx is the ultimate spreadsheet game, but it is a very relaxing spreadsheet. So I enjoy playing it when there's some time to kill. And this is sort of the game that everyone in my game group knows how to play, and we just play it. The next game is an up-and-coming game that everyone in my group knows how to play, and that is High Society. I keep on being impressed by how High Society works. The end game, the reverse auction of the negative cards, the inverse auction rather, just all the nuances that come with such a simple design that was made in 1995 by the good Dr. Reiner Knizia, and also just the amount of chaos that the game has, but yet that all contributes to fun rather than just a luck fest. Like, this is very much what Incan Gold should be. Too bad High Society doesn't play with 6 to 8. But yeah, High Society feels like Incan Gold, but with more auctions, which is always good for me. And it is super great. As far as when compared to For Sale, I like For Sale a little better but it seems like everyone I teach high society to likes high society a little better. So high society is the people's game versus me, the auction nerds game. I played 4 games of Dominion, which is my favorite game. I do not count the games I've played online because I am not talking to anyone. It doesn't feel like playing a game or a board game. It feels like playing a browser game. So I don't count those at all. But I played 4 games of Dominion when talking to people I know, friends. So either IRL or on some sort of online platform where I can talk with people on Discord. But yeah, Dominion, fantastic. Um, I do plan on expanding my Endless Kingdoms project. In fact, I'm probably recording one tonight after this video, although I am getting a bit tired. But Dominion is so great. It is, again, the Euro engine builder where good cards don't come to you easy. With most good cards, you still need to figure out how to use them in a clever way. And so that's what I really like about it. And there's a recent game that came out called The Hunger by Richard Garfield, which actually feels like Clank, but more along the lines of Dominion. Like if Clank is Star Realms, The Hunger is Dominion because it's more restrictive and your choices have more consequence. And so I am actually playing The Hunger in 2 days, and I am really, really excited because that seems like the Dominion lovers Clank. So the next game I played was Cascadia. I played 4 games of Cascadia, and yeah, it's the hype is real with this one. It's just so good. It's the feel of playing it. It's relaxing, but also tense. It's open. It makes you feel like you're on the outdoors. Every move feels satisfying. The dual draft mechanism has never felt as satisfying. Every time you place an animal onto the hex, onto the habitat, it just feels so good. And yeah, the tactile nature of it and the really well thought out scoring system. See, again, I don't like tile laying scoring usually because usually it's just a bunch of stuff that's at odds with each other and they contribute to just let me try this and see what happens. Cascadia does all that, but yet somehow everything I do feels like it means more. I look nearby, I see my friends going hawks. I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have a single hawk, but my elks are going to be great. See, what I'm describing is literally just how you feel when playing any tile laying game with a variable scoring sort of thing. But I'm telling you, with Cascadia, something just hits really different, and I really, really love it. The next game I played was Archaeology, the new expedition. I've been really falling in love with this one. I already knew I loved this game. This is the rummy game that I just can't get enough of. It's so good. It has a bunch of really childlike mechanisms that usually should not work. Like a little bit take that-y, if you will. But this game just makes them palatable, but also really fun. And even when someone gets their precious thing stolen from me with the thief card, I've never seen anybody get really, really angry about it. It just somehow it's still all in good fun. And the good thing is this month I actually got to play it as many times as I'd like to, and that doesn't happen with all games. So yay, Archaeology, the new expedition. The next game I played was Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small. Now, I'm actually thinking of reviewing the whole trilogy at some point. So I'm starting with Agricola, All Creatures Big and Small, and I have some thoughts. And I don't think I'm going to share all of them right here because it's very interesting. I want to leave that for the video. But I'm starting to understand this Uwe Rosenberg guy. See, I haven't played any of his more advanced Euros or advanced level, as Lookout Games says, the expert level games. But I'm starting here. I played some of his abstracts, obviously. Fairy Trails is great and underrated. But this game, I'm starting to understand what makes a Uwe Rosenberg feel like one. So on the one hand, you have the base game without the expansions. The expansion basically adds more buildings for you to build, like more options. The base game feels really tight. Almost feels like Patchwork, the tightness of Patchwork, but in a Euro form. I like the base game. You try to do the best with the board and a few buildings. but I also like the expanded version where it becomes a sandbox of stuff that you can do. And based on what I am feeling, I think the base game of All Creatures Big and Small will feel more like his earlier designs, while the sandboxy expansions feels more like his later designs, like a Feast for Odin, where you can do anything you want. And I like both, and I didn't think I would like both. I always thought I was more of a tight Euro person, but playing this makes me wonder if I'd actually like a Feast for Odin. Because a Feast for Odin sounds terrible, honestly. It just sounds like a terrible game for me. But maybe, I mean, I'm definitely going to try it once at some point. But maybe I'd actually like it, which is a new concept. Okay, now we go through the few games I've played 5 times. And the first one is going to be Oware. Oware is a Mancala game, and it is the highest rated Mancala game on Board Game Geek. And I fell in love with it, honestly. It is a game that stands the test of time. The inherent mechanism of Mancala, dropping a stone at every spot until you trigger a capture, is super fun. But this one feels more like a chess or checkers type game than your regular Mancala game. Regular Mancala, I've never played it, but I've went through the rules. You know, you have those broken ways you can take an extra turn and stuff. That oddly feels more like a chaotic take that game, you know. It feels more like a chaotic card game than it does a traditional abstract game. And, you know, these are as traditional as games could get. But it's really interesting that they could be so different. Oware feels really tight, really solid. And I really liked it. I've played it 5 times. And yeah, definitely not a game you can play online because Mancala just doesn't work. But I actually downloaded the Oware app. I've been playing it a little bit. But these are just the IRL games of Oware I've played. The next game I played, wow, I played this game a lot. Caesar. Seize Rome in 20 minutes. Now, I don't like Blitzkrieg. Blitzkrieg is pretty bad. But Caesar is so great, and I don't want to analyze it here. I've been spoiling a lot of content in my video reviews for the past few games, and I think this one I'm going to really try to keep it airtight. But I just want to say I really, really love it. Games are so fast. It actually delivers on its promise for the playing within 20 minutes. If you play fast, you can finish a game in 10 minutes, and the things you do feel absolutely broken. But it's only absolutely broken if your opponent did not block you well or play against you well. So there's a lot of depth, but it's also really simple and really fast. And Caesar Seize Rome in 20 minutes is amazing. I have played all my games online. I hear there's some production issues. My copy is arriving in like a few days. I am excited to take a look at what those production issues are. But the gameplay is amazing. The next game I played was Mindbug. Mindbug I played 6 times, by the way. And yeah, this is me going into Radlands thinking, oh, a lot of recent dueling card games were made. So I'm just going to start with a simple one because I wasn't familiar with the genre. So I start with Mindbug, pretty chaotic. I thought I really liked it. But then when I played Radlands, I'm like, why would I ever play Mindbug again? But that's not fair. First of all, Mindbug is so tiny that I would probably buy it at some point, especially if it's cheap. But Mindbug is really chaotic, and you do have some interesting tactical decision points in the game. It's a little... Cards are overpowered in different ways, so it doesn't feel as tight as Radlands, but Mindbug is fun. All right, and now for the game of the month. Honestly, though, the last 2 games I talked about, I did not know I played them this many times. Like, Mindbug or Caesar could have easily been the game of the month. But what other game is going to reign supreme with 9 plays than the greatest party game known as So Clover? Now, So Clover probably isn't the best party game ever made, but it has a strong case going for it. At least it's one of the best party games made that's played better with 3 or 4 people. You can play multiple games of it, you can finish a big thinky Euro game, and then just bust out Slow Clover, and everyone gets reminded of why we play games in the first place. I have a pretty thorough video of why I think So Clover is a game that can actually help people with emotional problems. I think So Clover is a therapeutic game, but I'm already spoiling it. More details to come. I think the way So Clover is constructed is it's just the act of playing defined. And that is why I keep on bringing it, especially if I have new people to play it with. It's just So Clover. Just always play it So Clover. Have you not played So Clover yet? You will play So Clover with me, you know? And then later on, if I feel like bringing it back, I might. I have a feeling this is not going to be the game of the month next month. But So Clover is the game of the month for January, and I can't see a better fit. So yeah, that is the roundup. Yeah, I hope you enjoyed that. And stay tuned for more content. February is going to be a big month. So I'll see you in the next one. Bye.